No, I'm not going for a ride today. It's still below freezing, but a couple of days from now it's supposed to warm up, so I'm excited that maybe we will get a ride. You never know. Anyway, we do have a couple of things to finish up in the shop, a couple of things that may need another coat of clear, may need some buffing. I want to finish that part of it off, and then it's going to be time to, basically going to be a good part of the day. I've got to take all the bikes out of the garage, rearrange the way I'm going to have the garage set up, because I'm going to be hanging that bike, take the wheels and forks and everything off, and it'll be sitting out in midair. So I'm looking forward to some warmer weather, maybe getting a ride, and a big garage reorg day coming up probably within the next week. But today I have parts to finish, and if I get them finished, that's another one of the giant watersheds that I'll be really happy about. So time to get the coffee brewed and feed the birds and clean the pond. And my life's very predictable. It's all the same every day. It's Groundhog Day. No, Groundhog Day is a terrible thing, and I can remember a day in my life, I can remember 19 years of my life that I really did live a Groundhog Day life, but I don't live it anymore. And today I'm looking forward to by pulling this all apart in one day. I'm hoping to get the wheels off, the forks off, and have it hanging by a come along, and then have all the other bikes in a different position, that if I need to work on any of them, or God forbid we get a ride, we'll have that opportunity. So it's going to be an exciting week coming up, but today I have to finish off those parts that are still sitting in limbo in the cellar. And the weather, always unpredictable, and one thing is predictable: Treezilla is now a tree stump. And Treezilla's only gone a couple of days, but I miss him already. But definitely looks like we may get some snow, some rain, who the hell knows what. Not a pretty day. And it doesn't matter how cold it is out there, how nasty, how gloomy. In my house, there's always coffee brewing, and there's always something to work on that belongs on that black motorcycle. So the first part I want to start on, and it's been hanging up by the heating vent for 2 days now. I want to get that buffed out, and hopefully if everything goes well today, see if these fairing sides need more clear, or if they have enough clear on them now, and you never know until you start sanding and buffing. If we could finish these 3 parts up in the next day or two, we'll be at the point we can then do the disassembly, the major disassembly of the bike. And the last time we worked on this part, we had some flaws we wanted to fix. Now I'm looking it over real carefully now to see if I've got any big spots I need to work on. There's a little dust right up here. Other than that, that's ready. That'll be ready for some 2000 grit paper and some of our 4CR product. And I'm sure most of that's going to have to be done by hand, just like we did yesterday. And these parts, they're just drying up. They've been up by the heating vent for at least a week or so. That they should be absolutely ready to go. So I'm looking forward to a day. I want to finish my coffee and get started. So while I'm having my coffee and getting ready for the day's activity, I thought I'd share. This is Ray Straub's new bike. It's a 400 Kawasaki. And he got a good deal on it, a super good deal, because it was a demo with 300 miles on it. And it looks like well, let me show you the rest of the pictures. This is a nice bike he's added to his collection down in Florida. And we hope we're going to get to ride this bike when he comes up our way, which he does several times a year. Ray and I have been friends since, by God, since the 70s. And he's a former AMAR racer, and actually he's one of the really good riders that I know. He is really a pro. But anyway, this is the fun thing. He's got some SV650s. He's got a Suzuki Bandit. He's got a bunch of 2-strokes. He's got dirt bikes. And now he's got this. Ray, you got quite a collection. Now I have to admit, the first time I saw one of these up on Bear Mountain, I was really impressed with how nice of a bike it is. This is a really sweet bike. And by the way, Luciano's new bike is due to be delivered next week. We're going to try to get up there and maybe even get a little ride on it, at least see it. So everybody seems to be interested in getting new bikes now. I think I'm the only one who doesn't have a new bike. Now, of course, the first thing I see when I look at a bike like this, the first thing I see is, ooh, wouldn't it be nice if we could find one that somebody dropped and chewed up all the bodywork, and you could get it for a really cheap price. And I could customize that bike in a minute, boy. That bike would look great black with some gold arrows. Well, ladders or something. Anyway. But Ray really has been a wonderful friend. His wife Marilyn and 2 sons. We have enjoyed knowing them since the 70s. It might even be before that, because what it is, we had boats on Greenwood Lake, and we used to, well, Ray still water skis down in Florida. He water skis in a lake that's full of alligators that backs out onto his house. I don't think that'd be for me, though. Ray is most famous. The most famous thing I can remember is when we used to road race Amar. We raced together, and he had a Bultaco that he sold me, and I don't remember if I painted it. I don't remember the whole story, but we used to call each other Senior Bulto. And I bet Ray remembers that. He can remember a million jokes. Anyway, Ray, I'm really happy you got this bike. I'm really looking forward to seeing it and riding it, and we'll take this and the RD up on 106 and relive the old days when we were young, and well, maybe we're still young and we just don't know it. And I really do love starting off my day with some pictures of when Dallas sends pictures, or anybody. It's just a great way to start a morning when you're going to work on motorcycles for a whole day. Anyway, Ray, thanks for sharing. I'm looking forward to seeing that bike in real life. But to be honest, as I finish up my coffee for the morning, this is what I really love about having multiple computers and TVs in the shop now. I can watch 2 rides at the same time. Whatever. It is really a good way to get inspired to do some quality work. And it is that time. But boy, these memories of the summer that just went by, wow, they are great to have. Okay, we're going to start off the day as we usually do with some 2000 Indasa sandpaper. If we use 200 on this, we'll have a lot of buffing to do. A lot of these small parts, a lot of times there isn't much you can do with a block. In this case, we're going to try to do whatever we can with a block, of course. But I have a feeling this is going to be just like yesterday. We're going to wind up with a lot of hand buffing on this. Maybe I can get a machine on this. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I am looking forward to getting that garage reorganized and getting all those major parts into the shop. Because what happens is when I don't do that, and we get these days, and we're going to ultimately get a big snowstorm here or something that's going to make it really inconvenient to do that. And so I'm trying to stack the deck in my favor. And sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't work as well as you think it does. But of course, the first thing I have to do here with everything, get it blocked down or get it sanded down with 2000 grit. And I can see there's still a couple little dust spots in there. Well, that's always the case. You just go back and sand a little more. Sand a little more aggressively. Now we got that ditch where the windshield drops into. We got that carbon fiber part that goes on this. So this is really going to be a focal point. As the motorcycle comes at you, you can see it from a lot of angles, of course. So I really want to, even if I have to do the whole thing by hand, I don't care. I'll just drink more coffee. Anyway, Ray and I really do have a friendship that goes back many, many years, and included his late brother Frank and other people that have passed on now. And we have had, I always say when Ray and I talk to anything, we have had a wonderful life. He's moved to Florida. I went down to see him in 2009. We went to Bike Week. I rode what was my old race bike, and the year later I restored it for him. He still has it. His son rides it, and he's got a really nice collection of bikes. I hope he's going to keep feeding us some pictures. His wife Marilyn likes to take pictures. Marilyn, take some more pictures. Share the passion. Okay, so we basically always do one in real time. We have to get this part, any part that's visible here, to look like that. Now, once the part is all flat sanded, and I'm very careful not to start sanding the edge. That's where I'll break through, which I did the other day. And we don't need to do down in this gap because the windshield is going to cover that. So all of the parts that are visible now are sanded, and that's ready to be buffed. Absolutely true. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet, and there's just some parts of this that are not going to be See what'll happen if I if I get carried away and I want to put the machine, this part here is vulnerable. There's parts back here that are like razor blades, and I don't want to, I'm afraid I'm going to catch the edge of it. So we're using a 4CR product. I bet I'm getting a cold from going out in that garage in the morning without a jacket on, which Karen hollers at me. I don't know. I watch these shows about people moving to Alaska, and I just keep thinking, oh my God. I'm glad I live in Rutherford. So let's just see how long this takes to come up if you buff it by hand. I like to do one little part and then one little area, because the other big areas we have, if we do get to work on the fairings, which I think we will today, unless we have some family stuff come up, what's going to happen is I can use the machine on about 90% of that. So there's not many areas that are vulnerable. But these delicate parts, I really don't think you want to push it. Let's just see. Now let's just see if I can show that. See, this is difficult too because I'm under the light here. That's how quickly that paint comes up. And by the way, I know I usually show it up close, but this is my brand new container. And I've used this on my car with the big buffing wheel. About once every year or two, I'll buff out the car, get the bird poops off it. This stuff is really good. And the two cars I have are both 11 years old. They still look pretty good. So I thought I'd mention something else here. If you notice, this is something I just forgot to mention. One side of a microfiber always has less, I guess, fuzz on it. The way these are made, at least these are medium. And by the way, microfibers are there's all different grades of them. The ones you buy in Harbor Freight are not that good. The ones you buy in BJ's are really good. Dale brought a case of them over. I'm still using them. The BJ's ones are really good. But here's the point I wanted to make. This is something, when you're doing a part by hand and you need to get into all these little nooks and crannies, well, there's almost no other way you can do it. And in this case, just like yesterday, this is almost like a repeat of, God forbid, a Groundhog Day yesterday, where 99% of this part is easier to buff by hand than you don't run the risk of going through and making a problem for yourself. So in this case, I'm really trying to get up into this area where the carbon fiber piece goes, so that there's no chance I'm going to have an unbuffed little edge or something up there. So this is one of the focal points of the motorcycle. Actually, all of the black parts are, because what should set this motorcycle apart from, let's say, one that you just bought at the dealership, is the quality of the paint and the design of the trim, which the people at Kawasaki, I don't know that they're the best in the world. I look at some of their paint jobs and I'm glad I'm not doing it. But that one on Ray's new bike looks pretty cool. Looks like maybe they fired the guy that years ago did some of the paint jobs really bad. But anyway, all in the eye of the beholder. And some people think my stuff is ugly. And sometimes Karen thinks it's ugly. Sometimes I think it's ugly. You never know. Anyway, I'm going to keep working on this part. And when I'm done with this part, it'll be time for coffee. Because this is harder work. But if you do 2 hours of this and 2 hours of buffing with the big buffer, but actually the other parts are just flat parts, I'll be able to use the buffer on them, so it won't matter how tired I am at the end of this part of it. But we will get this done today. So at some point in time, we're all buffed out here. Now, there's one last thing to do, and it was a critical thing, and I would really suggest anybody doing a complex job like this. All of these little tabs I very carefully masked off. Every little slot where they, and let me show you some of these things. It's really something that's critical. These little things all go in tabs and tangs, and when it goes together, I got to take all the tape off. But to get that piece all put together the way it should be, because if you don't and you lose the fit between these tabs, the part goes in like my teeth, and like everything is just really not the way it should be. So the next thing for me, I'll get a hairdryer and I'll carefully get off all the tape. I've gotten the stick off. and then make sure that I have all the fits and all the finishes on this as close as I can get them. Now I want to take all these little tape areas carefully off and see if any paint got in those little tabs and tangs, and there's a lot of them too. I was amazed. Putting this fairing together is like a jigsaw puzzle. I had no idea in the beginning because I'm a lot more familiar with doing track day body work that just comes off with a couple of zip ties, a couple of Zeus fittings. But anyway, this one is going to be a little different. Now, putting it together, I'm going to try to get somebody to come over to the house the day I'm putting this together and lay out fresh towels on everything, so I don't want to scratch this up. It should be pretty labor intensive. But you can see what I mean. There's an edge there where the windshield goes, and I don't want anything interfering. And there's 1, 2, 3, there's like 15 of these things on here. So, but that part really did come out nice. Real happy the way that came out. And in the very beginning of the job, I was going to leave this flat black, and I thought that'll. And then when I'm all done, I knew the error in my ways. Just paint it shiny black, and you'll always be the winner. Now it's really critical with this piece, with all of these little tabs and tangs, and let me just show this, why I had to be so careful. All these parts interlock like a jigsaw puzzle. Every one of these tangs, bolts, screws, there's locking pins, but ultimately, and of course there's little rubber bushings everywhere. So what happens is I wanted to really be careful that when I went to put this back together, I didn't get anything misaligned, anything crooked, anything that I was not going to be happy with. Because again, I think, and I didn't realize it right in the beginning before I took this apart, this is going to be a really important part of putting this fairing back together. And I'm glad it came out so nice. And a carbon fiber piece, and that just locks in there now. The fits are absolutely perfect. That's going to be the nose section. And when you see the motorcycle coming right at you, you'll see that carbon fiber and a shiny piece instead of a flat dull piece. Yes, I think that was all the time, and that's an incredible amount of time we put into those two pieces. I think that's really going to add a nice touch to a custom motorcycle. So we can take a break and celebrate with an extra cup of coffee here. That first part came out great, and now we can move on to the main fairing parts. Now we get to the big parts after being recharged with a cup of mocha java. Now I wanted to try to pass on some information that I think is really useful here. Doing a big part like this, and when I say a big part, this will be a difficult part to take off the bike and repaint if I had to. So when I have that scenario that I am going to hopefully never have to take this part off the bike again, it means I want to spend extra time. I want all of these arrowheads to be buried and clear. I want all of these up here to be buried and clear. All of the lettering to be buried and clear. Now, it's not a simple decision like you think, because as you make the paint thicker, it's more prone to crack. So if I were to put, this is 2 thick coats, and I can still feel the letters, so they're not buried yet. I'm going to block sand them in until they're buried, and then put a 3rd coat on. What typically happens if you put a 3rd coat on without block sand in it, you don't get all these little flaws out of the paint, all this little dust and things, or if there are any runs. I don't see any runs right now, but that doesn't mean that as I'm picking away at this I won't find some. But what I did find works really well is to get 2 coats of clear on, let it dry at least 2 or 3 days up by a heating vent, even better, and then sand the whole part out with 600 sandpaper, which is a relatively easy sand out with a block. It'll get rid of all the little flaws in the paint. And then put that last coat of clear on, just put 1 wet coat on. I don't know if the weather's going to cooperate today. That's yet to be proven, but by looking at this part, I'd say we're 99% ready. We have the typical things, and I can show it where they are in the paint. Now, yeah, the temptation is always, and it's a tempting thing, I've fallen for this trick many times, is to take 2,000 grit paper and buff this out. Now what happens is there's clear on it, but there's really not a lot. So what happens is now, because I'm constantly polishing the bike and buffing it and cleaning it and whatever, that paint starts to wear thinner and thinner and thinner. And so years down the road, all of a sudden, and I'm already through it, by the way, on a Kawasaki gas tank, the paint that came from the factory, I've already worn through in spots. So by having it done now, I've just got to make that decision to not take the cheap way out. I'll sand these parts down with 600. If I can paint them today, great. That's a great plan of action. And if I can't, if the weather isn't cooperating, we'll just wait for the next paintable day. I never want to get into that thing of compromising and rushing. So for this part of the job, it's going to be 600 in DASA. So I want to start with the obvious, block sand over the letters, and then I can make a decision as to if I want to put another coat of clear on this or not. Most of this, I'd say 75–80% of it, I can do with the soft block, which means it'll go relatively painlessly, quickly. But I want to make sure one of two things: that if I need another coat of clear on this, I don't cheat myself, and if I've got enough clear on it already, I don't want to make it any thicker than I have to. And the only way I'll know it is when I sand the part down. Once I get the part sanded, then I can make a decision on it. Now, I decided, instead of going over it with 600, I switched to 2000 because I want to have the option that if there's enough clear on here, and again, I won't know until I'm done looking at it. The test is when I'm all done, there can't be any shiny spots. I want to be able to put my hand over that, and I just have a gut feeling this is going to need another coat of clear. I'm just looking at it roughly, and I'm thinking, yeah, there's a lot of little edges. Let me kind of show this up close. I think you can see when I'm block sanding and I see all those low spots, wherever it's shiny, it's low. Now, because the lettering actually came out pretty good here, I think I'm going to, at this point, I've done my my little test with the 2000 grit, go back to 600 and just sand the whole part down. And then I know that I'll be buried in clear, because I do not want to be able to run my hand over that and feel that. And, well, I tried to give myself all the choices here, but it looks like I'm going to have to bite the bullet and sand both of these parts down with 600 and put another coat of clear on them. And I don't mind doing that, because in the end, I know it'll be worth it. So I always try to give myself all the options and all the choices, but in the end, I think realistically this needs another coat of clear. And just by doing that little test, and again, I'm really fussy about this. I really want this to be as good as I can make it. And if it takes an extra day or an extra coat of paint or an extra hour or an extra month, I don't care. In the end, I'm going to have this bike on the day of my death. So I want to, when I think about it that way, I'm going to be looking at this paint for a long, maybe not that long. I know that's what you're thinking. Anyway, the 600 sanding should go a little quicker than the 2000. Once this is all smoothed out, I'll have to make a decision based on taking a look outside. It's been cloudy. We haven't seen the sun all day. But the other day it warmed up. In the late afternoon, it warmed up to almost 40 degrees and we were able to paint. Well, but every day is different. There's no 2 days alike. I wish it was more predictable, but this is the part of the country we live in. And that's why Tony Soprano moved here. He liked that unpredictable weather. Now, this is the whole thing in a nutshell, is to not go so far. I want to block sand that, but I don't want to go so far that I cut into the gold or put a spot that I have to repair, because repairing that would be obviously a major thing. But I've got virtually, I can run my hand over that and I can't feel where it is. And you can't do that if you don't have enough clear on. That's why when I put the original clear on, I put as much as I possibly could on there in 2 heavy, really heavy coats. Now, I've got to do the same thing up here. And it's this gets all pretty redundant after a while. And you can see here where I've got little spots in the paint, how they pop up. But I want the whole thing to look like this before I put what I hope will be the last coat of clear on. And the weather will determine, a couple hours from now, and we'll see how that weather plays out. How we really took our time and tried to get every little speck of dust out of this, every little flaw we could find. I think for all purposes, we're ready. We're just waiting to see how the weather's going to be maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours from now. because if we can get a coat of clear on this today, it's a bonus. If we can't, we'll definitely wait. But I'll have the parts all prepped up either way. And to me, the preparation of this stuff is so big of a job. The actual painting of it only takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But we basically got a few hours in these parts. Now, once they're prep walled up, we will be ready. Just let that, I'm going to put it up by a heating vent so the part is a little bit warmer than ambient if we get the paint today. Again, we are always the prisoner of the weatherman. A final bit of prep on this part. I'll tack rag it again just before I actually go to paint it. And I am really excited about seeing how this is going to come out when this is buffed out. I think this is really going to be, this is going to be one of the for sure, one of the focal points. And that lettering, I can't feel it at all if I close my eyes. So I know by burying it in one more coat of clear, it's going to be even better. So basically the first part took a little over an hour to sand out. This is going to take an hour. And that should bring us into the part of the day that we can hopefully have some weather or have a final weather report how this day is going to play out. Now whenever you have two parts the same, it seems like the second one always goes a little faster, assuming you don't run out of gas. But in my case, or run out of coffee, we just we use some performance enhancing drugs called caffeine, and it works. Anyway, we will just tough this out because the weather seems like it's hanging tough, and it's about 35 degrees right now, and it looks like it's cloudy, but it looks like we'll be able to paint. So I'm kind of thinking that'll be to our favor if I can get the clear on this, get this in the garage today. That'll be like a free bonus, and I'll take all the free bonuses I can get, believe me. Believe me. And there's a fine line between wanting to accomplish a certain amount of work every day, and then you get to the point where you're rushing it. Well, we never want to rush it. Done that already, and it never, ever pays off. This was a long day of sanding here. We're going to prep these up and then take a little coffee break and see if the weather's cooperating. And you never know that weathermen, that even when they say there's no chance of rain, they lie. Anyway, we did get a lot. Boy, no matter what, we did get a lot done today. Wow. Busy day. Just yelled down to me, the sun's out. She knows I'm waiting to paint. And it looks like we're going to be able to do just that. Maybe it is truly our lucky day. So with the parts prepped, our objective will be to get one really nice wet coat on both of these parts and get it into the garage drying. And believe it or not, the sun is out. It's unbelievable. Unpredictable weather. Boy, it's amazing how this day turned out. I am so impressed. I could not have made this up. Now, because the wind isn't blowing badly out there, we have very little dust in the paint. And I just think that's going to be, it's so worth it now that we have that much done. That just couldn't have been any better today. We have really, that's like a little miracle that we started off the day looking like rain and really cold, and it got beautiful in the afternoon. So unpredictable. Now what I tried to show is I did this with very low pressure, and the gun almost acting like an airbrush, putting on a very thin coat but going back over and over with a very thin coat, because I wanted this. I'm trying to take advantage of the fact there's no dust, not much dust in the air, and the paint is laying down so nice. So I put on just till I had about what I think is the right amount of paint, but instead of blowing it on like you do when the gun is wide open, that's a one coat, and there isn't a single run in it. So, oh, that looks beautiful. I think we might have really lucked out today, and we've certainly gotten a money's worth out of this day. Well, this day ends, and it just couldn't have been any better. Boy, no dust in the air. I mean, there's a little dust, nothing. That'll compound right out. Oh my God, this came out great. Just totally unbelievable. I'm so impressed. Wow. Anyway, we've had a long day, and that last coat of clear, when I put that on with the very, very thin coat after coat after coat, instead of blowing on one coat, it looks like it really laid down great. And I wanted to show one thing. I don't know if you can really see it, how nice that 650R came out. John, thank you very much. And tonight we're going to go work on 2 computers again tonight. Seems like John and I are having a bromance here. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.